A couple folks in class were running into gameplay situations where people would walk places they don't want them to walk. And as you know, you can use colliders, like the colliders on these wall objects, to stop people walking through walls. But what might not have occurred to everyone is that you can make invisible walls through a very similar process. So I just wanted to point out that now that we're converting, for example, this project that I made from first person into a VR style project, certain things won't work anymore. Like I made this platforming section back when we could jump. In VR, especially if I'm using continuous move with no teleporting, I don't have a jumping solution here. And so if we try to walk off the edge, we would just fall. And that can be very disconcerting to someone in headset. It's like when you think you're stepping on one more step on a staircase, but it's not there or whatever, your foot kind of falls through the floor. So maybe I can make an invisible wall that just stops us walking through here. That's one solution. So the way I would do this is create a cube. I can, I'll call it invisible wall. And I'm going to change its scale. So now we've got a wall. I'm going to bring it right up to the edge. And everything's working about this except I can see it. And so that's just what I wanted to show you here is you can turn off the mesh renderer. And now we have a box collider, but no visible aspect of it. And so now this is an invisible wall. So that's one component of our invisible wall equation. But if you test it out right now, it will become apparent that we have a problem, and that's that our player can still pass right through it. And in fact, we can kind of float all the way along here. So if you stop and think like, well, why is that happening? Why are we just sort of like a floating camera? It's because if you go to the XR origin and look through any of the relevant game objects, you'll notice in origin and camera offset and camera, there is nothing that represents a collider for the player. So the player can pass through everything right now. So let's change that. So to get the character side of this going as well, we're going to be on our XR origin object, and we're going to add two components. The first is called character controller, and the second is character controller driver. These are going to work in concert to both give our camera a collider, or at least a something that can interact with colliders, and also sort of move that around and keep it attached to the camera. So while you could just have a collider object childed to the camera, this gives us some extra functionality that I can show you now. For example, our character controller has a look about it that's like a capsule collider, and you can kind of see the wireframe here. And we can change its height and radius so that it represents something like our body. We can be a little forgiving here, but remember Unity is working in meters, so its units are meters. So 2 would be about 6 feet high. So the height works fairly well as 2, and then the character controller driver can have a minimum height and a maximum height, and this is useful for the fact that our camera can go up and down based on us standing up or crouching or whatever. So a minimum height, we might not want to allow the player's virtual body to get smaller than 1 meter, and the maximum height, maybe we say, is always just at 2 meters. We never get taller or jump or anything, so we can make it through hallways or whatever. The last thing we need to do is hook up our Locomotion system from our hierarchy into the character controller driver Locomotion provider. Once we have that, if we hit play, and then I'll jump back to the scene view so you can see what's happening. Here are my controllers, and my head is the camera, and you can see as I move around that capsule is tracking the camera. So far so good. And if we go over here, let me show you where I'm at. If we walk towards the invisible wall we made, now I can no longer pass through it. And if I switch to game and show you what I'm seeing, yeah, I'm pushing, but I can't get through. So that's the expected result.